You're listening to Hockey Talk on the Rock
All right, stop.
with Laura and Keith.
It's interesting.
So let's back up a second.
He played absolutely out of his mind.
It made no sense to me.
And now, here are your hosts.
Let's do this. Welcome back, everybody. Hockey Talk on the Rock, episode 12.
Woohoo!
We've drummed up some topics to talk about. Not many, but a few. And we're going to talking.
Yeah, there's
So-
a little bit of NHL news. It seems
A little
like.
bit, yeah. Do you want to start on the news stuff and then do our little predictions of the divisions at the end?
Sure, sounds good.
Okay, sweet. And before we do the division predictions, I'm going to swap uniforms. I just wanted to wear my sweet Santa playing hockey sweater since we probably won't be able to see you before Christmas, so I figured you'd appreciate it.
Yes, I'm also wearing a hockey-themed Christmas attire. It
Yeah,
is
this is
not-
nice, but you know,
That is in the
you always gotta one-up me. That's no big deal.
But I like the thought. The hockey-themed Christmas sweater. Good. Good stuff. Alrighty, so I guess the biggest news is that it seems like we are going to have a season. Woohoo!
Right.
It looks like it's going to be January 13th start get date with a 56 game schedule, which is pretty nice. That will be a lot of hockey and a short period of time because obviously they'll have to finish everything up before the Olympics happen in July. So, you know, it's going to be tight, and that brings some worry if there's any sort of COVID outbreak or problems like the NFL or any of the other major league sports like basketball have kind of come into. But overall, I mean, it's a good sign. It seems like they've agreed on the money, and they've basically just signed what they said they were going to do in the summer. And they're still working out a few issues. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on?
No, I'm happy to have a target date to look forward to. And I mean, they started talking, I guess, yesterday, maybe it was today, about how NHL was going to like privately purchase vaccines for the whole league or whatever. So that kind of removes a little bit of risk factor that you've seen in the other leagues, like you were talking about there. You know, one of those things where we know money makes the world go round. So how fair is it that the hockey league can just swoop in and buy some of the first vaccines? And at the same time, you know, I heard it suggested that it would be like a nice gesture if for every one vaccine they bought for their players and league members, they bought one or two for like frontline workers or whatever. And hopefully they do some kind of PR move like that in the state of the times we're in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it will honestly look just so bad as a league if they do like privately buy the vaccine and then don't do anything like that. I mean, there's already people complaining about why hockey went on in the summer, why like people from different countries were able to enter Canada specifically for that versus, you know, they're going to see their family. And obviously I don't buy that argument because they were so isolated in that bubble. It's not like you're potentially exposing the population, but there are people that already think that way, and if they get the vaccine before like I don't know, people who are, you know, immune compromised or that really need it, like frontline workers, it's just going to look so bad.
Yeah, along that same vein, they kind of already went through this whole thing with, you know, the tests, when the tests were hard to come by, and like, why should the NHL be able to get all these tests? Because they kind of already went through this, and I don't remember if they ended up doing some kind of gesture. They probably did, but.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think Sportsnet brought this up either yesterday or today was that maybe it would look good if athletes got the vaccine first and that it would actually make people want to get it. And I don't know, again, how much I buy that argument because let's say if Sidney Crosby goes and is the spokesperson for the vaccine in Canada, is that going to be more likely for people to want to go and get that vaccine?
Right. Yeah, I don't know how much influence over the general public that would have.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, it's nice. I did listen to Chris Johnson talking about the start date, and he said he still thinks it's going to be pushed back a bit just because there's time that's running out and there's so much that needs to still be put in place. And one of the potential hurdles right now is that with all the COVID restrictions in place, like if Montreal had to set up their training camp in Quebec, they can't actually access their training facility right now at all.
Right.
And like California is really bad as well. And then I also heard that Philadelphia would have issues. And so, I mean, there's a lot that needs to be worked out on that front. But then also in terms of the teams, like, for example, the taxi squad situation. So if the teams are allowed to carry more players than normal on their team because they don't have access to their AHL players, essentially. But is that taxi squad going to count against the cap?
No.
Because then the idea is that teams like Vancouver or Toronto would be totally screwed, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think that they would count against the cap, and I heard that the taxi squad players would still be paid an AHL salary until they got into the games, but they would get like an NHL per diem.
Okay, yeah.
But I mean, behind closed doors, I feel like there's more contingency plans than what leaks out to the news and the media. Even they had someone on from the Athletic who reports on San Jose, and they can't play in San Jose or practice or anything. And he basically said they already are aware that they'll probably be playing most of their games to start in Arizona, similar to how the 49ers in football are playing in the Cardinal Stadium. So I think they probably got that worked out, and it just hasn't made it out to the news cycle yet.
Okay. Because, the other thing that I think that they're talking about right now is the idea of maybe starting in a modified bubble situation just because of the COVID rates in North America. And then once it's kind of okay to get players or teams to their home rinks, they'll do that. But potentially start like with all the teams, let's say in the Canadian division playing wherever, and then they'll branch back out. But I don't know. I know the players are very anti going into any sort of bubble. So anyway, there's lots left to figure out, but hopefully there's an announcement soon because.
Yeah, I think we'll probably hear about it early next week. They'll probably hammer it all out, and they got to have most of the players you think trickling back at this point.
Yeah, that's the other thing is there is still players in Europe and overseas that have to come back. A lot of them already have, but if the season is starting,
Yeah.
they need to come back. And then the idea of having an opt-out, like they did in the summer, obviously they'll have to have that again, I would assume. And then when the vaccine does become available to them, is there going to be an option for players to opt out? Or is everyone going to have to get the vaccine to play?
Right.
That's another interesting.
Yeah, I think and going back to the taxi squad thing, the AHL is not supposed to start for 3 weeks after the NHL, so I think they'll have a little bit of the first 3 weeks to try and figure out exactly how that's going to work too before the AHL even kicks off. So that'll be beneficial to the NHL at least.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, talking about the AHL and wiggle room and figuring it out, is they're not going to have any preseason games. It's going to go straight into the season after 10 games, 10 days of camp. So that's going to be interesting. But they basically did that this summer before the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
But those first few games are probably going to be really, sloppy, especially for those teams that haven't played since March or only played 4 games or whatever in the summer. Yeah.
That would make for entertaining hockey and some high-scoring games, you'd think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, what do you got next? Next for me would be the Pacioretty rumors.
Yeah, so Pacioretty is rumored to be on the trading block from Vegas. Basically, they want to get rid of his $7 million cap hit because they are over the cap. But also the rumor is they want to sign either Hoffman or Eric Howla. And it kind of comes back, we talked about this before, with Vegas not really having like loyalty to their players, but also like a team identity, right? It's like, let's just go and get all the all-stars and then we'll get rid of our other all-stars. And the thing that I find really fascinating about Pacioretty in particular is they gave up a lot to get Pacioretty. They gave up Nick Suzuki, who looks like a stud, a second-round pick that they flipped, so it's not like it doesn't look like it's a big deal now. They flipped it to LA for a 3rd and a 5th, and neither of those players are people that I'm familiar with, so I'm just going to assume they're not, knocking on the NHL door right now. And then also Thomas Tatar, who, was
Wasn't anything in Vegas, but turned out to be awesome in Montreal.
yeah. So then if you flip Pacioretty now, having given that up 2 years ago, what are you going to get for him when, teams know that you're up against it? And
Yeah, and to compile onto that, to get Tatar, who went in that deal, they gave up a first, second, and a third.
yeah,
Look at it like that. They gave up Suzuki a first, 2 seconds, and a third, right? Or whatever it was. So, yeah, they paid a big price. But I mean, I totally understand why they want to move Pacioretty, even though it's only 3 more years, because he did just have his best points per game season of his career.
sure.
And he got over the 30 goal mark again too. So everybody wants goal scorers, and to see he's in his, what is he, like early 30s or something?
Yeah.
Still at that point of getting his best point, like there's value there. So why not do it now?
For sure.
I kind of tried to come up with potential trade partners.
Yeah.
I was going to try to restrict it to 3. I went with 4.
Okay.
It seems like we always talk about Columbus and
Yeah.
to add somebody. Like we've went over how they've cleared all that cap space and they didn't really get anyone. They would have to probably send somebody the other way because they haven't signed Dubois yet, and they only have $9 million cap space, and he'll probably eat a good chunk of that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just looked at Columbus and probably like Riley Nash or Oliver Borkstrand going back the other way, and a couple picks or something, which isn't very much, just to save some money on Pacioretty.
Yeah.
Ottawa, I just said they have the space, they kind of need the leadership, and they have tons of assets. They would only have to give up futures.
Yep.
I put Boston down because they've been talked about all offseason for like Hoffman and stuff like that, and they haven't really got anybody. And I'll come back to Boston later.
Yeah. What's Boston's cap situation like, though?
They only have like 3 or 4 million free, so I said they would have to put probably Andre Kasha.
Okay.
And who's only got 1 year left on his deal into the deal to make the space, because apparently Vegas is willing to hold $2 million back of Pacioretty's 7.
Okay.
And then, like I said, I was going to hold it to those 3. I threw in the Rangers too, because it just seems like a Ranger thing to do, to pick up an aging all-star. They seem to be doing it since I was a kid, and it seems like he's the type of guy they would want to land for whatever reason.
Yep.
And they don't have that much money, surprisingly, because they've done the rebuild so fast. So, I think a Buchnevich plus some futures would get that done for them, but just speculation at this point.
Yes.
Did you postulate any possibles there?
So I had Columbus and Ottawa as well, and then I put Detroit because Detroit has lots of money. And again, it seems like a good player for their young players to kind of learn from. But, they also have tons of futures as well. So.
Yeah. I tried to avoid Detroit and LA in that one just because I feel like I picked them for a lot of things just because they have so much cap money.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think Stevie Y, I don't think he's that type of guy for Stevie Y.
Yeah, and I don't know. The other thing with Columbus with Pacioretty is, again, I don't know how Tortorella and him would work. I really don't feel like he is a Tortorella type player, but
Yeah, they're both Americans.
I was gonna say they probably have played internationally together before, so.
I think they did at the last Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's fun to watch. I mean, and the Vegas owner came out and squashed, quote unquote, the rumors, but like that doesn't mean anything. We all know that.
Yeah, and then the other thing I guess with Vegas right now is if it's not Pacioretty, it's probably gonna be Marchessault or Fleury if they can find a taker. And I know in the summer they weren't really willing to retain any money on Fleury, but maybe now they are. But also with Fleury, you kind of think, well, 2 things. Because the season is going to be so compressed with so many back-to-backs, like this is the year to carry 2 good goalies, right? So if Vegas kept him this year, it would make sense. However, I also think if a team gets off to a really bad start with their goaltending situation, they're probably going to call Vegas and then maybe something will work out then. There are a few teams out there, right, that have very questionable goalie situations at the moment. and maybe, I don't know, but we'll see.
I mean, I thought in the summer Vegas was willing to hold half of Fleury's salary.
Oh, really? I heard they weren't willing to hold any of it.
Yeah, wasn't that a thing when they were getting desperate? They were calling everybody saying we'll hold half his salary for a second or whatever it was, and nobody wanted to do it.
Interesting, yeah.
I can't remember. I think we talked about it on one of the early episodes. We'd have to go back, but
Yeah.
that's a long time ago. Couple re-signings I got.
Yes.
For both of our teams, one apiece. The Flyers re-signed RFA Philippe Myers, 3 years, 2.55. I'm stoked.
That's a really good deal.
That's a great deal. 16 points plus 17, and the plus minus is 50 games. Sorry, last year. He's found money, right? He was an undrafted college free agent, and he's looked good. He had a couple big goals in the bubble. Totally happy they got him for 3 years at that deal.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would be stoked if it was the Canucks.
And then you boys re-signed Jim Benning's new popular voice in the room, or whatever you want to call him. He talks about Jalen Chatfield a ton now. And they got him on a 1 year, $700K minimum league deal. So, if he's going to be projected to be this awesome replacement for Chris Tanev or whatever, maybe that's a really sweet deal.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll hold my breath on Chatfield right now, but maybe he'll be our Philippe Myers.
You never know.
But
So a couple big re-signings. Sticking with the Canucks, Braden Holtby's new mask popped out there today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay, so I read the story of how him and his designer came up with the mask and the Thunderbird plucking orcas out and all that. And I was like, that's a cool story. And I really like the mask, except for like the face of the Thunderbird. It kind of throws me off. It looks kind of goofy, and maybe the yellow in there throws me off. But what's your take?
So I have a bit of a beef with Dave Art, who is the guy that designed the mask, because essentially what happened is he's monopolized the NHL mask business, and he does everyone's mask now, which is a ton of work for a painter, and he does it because he doesn't do it very well. And the only reason why I know this is because my friend who I play hockey with is a mask designer, and we've actually been working on my mask right now. And honestly, I don't like it. Like, that's just my bit. I just don't think it looks very good. I like the story, but Dave Art's gotta go. Let's get some new designers into the NHL, because I'm sick of seeing all his masks. I'll tag my friend in this because she'll really like that.
Okay, I don't know that backstory, so whatever.
I'm just gonna say that I think my mask is gonna look better than both Holtby's and Demko's, and it's sad.
Well, you have to show it off when you have it done.
Oh, I will.
You have to wear it for a whole episode, though.
Oh, I will. That's gonna.
Okay. Well,
I like the Thunderbird story. I think that's nice.
It is, but yeah, I think they could have done better.
Yeah.
Moving on from there, for me, what do you have got next?
So for me, I've basically got a whole bunch of stuff about the division realignment.
Okay.
But otherwise, best off-season, worst off-season, or World Juniors, I guess.
I've got biggest off-season winners and losers, and then after that, I got division realignment stuff.
Okay.
So you want to start off with your winners?
Sure. So I will say I didn't put a ton of thought into this.
Neither did I. I did it very quickly.
Okay, so perfect. So I've got a lot of Canadian teams for the off-season winners, which is probably biased because of the media. But
Okay.
Montreal, I think, they've made some good additions, both through free agency. Tyler Toffoli, Joel Edmondson, who's kind of a trade, and then Anderson as well, is really kind of helping. And then, of course, Jake Allen for their backup goalie. They'll be an expensive duo, him and Price, but I think they're going to be the best duo in the league for this season, which, again, compressed schedule goes a long way.
Like you said, this is the year to have two good goalies for sure.
Yeah, and then if Seattle takes Allen in the expansion draft, I don't think that's a big deal for Calgary. So I have them. I have Ottawa mainly because of their draft. I kind of have a bit of an asterisk here because, I like the fact that they went out and got Matt Murray. They needed to address their goaltending situation, and they did. However, I just have this feeling that he's going to be awful in Ottawa. He wasn't good in Pittsburgh last year, and Ottawa's defense is really meh.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just the pure kind of, I guess, initiative to go out and address the situation and get a goalie, they did, and he matches their age group, so that is nice. And then, their draft was amazing, and then adding Dadonov up front, they've done well. I also have Buffalo again. I think getting Taylor Hall there is kind of the surprise of the summer, and then Eric Stahl at center kind of shores up their forward depth. I still think Buffalo has a lot of work to do, but I think they're on the upswing. And then I put Calgary as my last one here. And again, kind of an asterisk beside it because I don't think that Tanev or Markstrom's contracts will age well at all. But for this season, I think they're going to benefit from all the offseason moves they made.
Okay.
Yeah.
I only did 3.
Okay.
You've covered 2 of them.
Yeah.
Montreal was the first one I put down for everything you said. They made the biggest improvements, I think, of any team by far. They paid a little bit too much, I think, for the RFA or the UFA rights to Edmondson. I think this was a year that they probably could have waited, considering how long UFA had to sit around for.
Yeah.
But whatever, if they really want them, they really want them.
Yeah.
I had Buffalo, same thing. They had the big fish with Taylor Hall, and I think the Eric Stahl trade is going to be more surprising and stabilizing than most people probably think or realize, but Buffalo is not going to be great still.
Yeah.
And then my third one, which I'm surprised you didn't have, and I'm kind of homering here with Vancouver, more for the moves they didn't make.
Yep.
If they knew they couldn't go past a certain mark with Tanev and Markstrom, I'm glad they didn't, because that's kind of been a fault of theirs in the past, is to just kind of fold and do it, and then they pay for it in the long run.
Yes.
And then I also really like Holtby and Schmidt coming in. Time will tell, with me especially, but they certainly talk up Holtby and his ability to learn and pick up things on the go really quickly, as well as his commitment and his competitiveness. So I have high hopes there. So I threw Vancouver in as one of the top 3 winners for me. Again, I did this really quickly and actually quite off the top of my head. So there's probably other teams that could be in there that I just didn't even think about.
Yeah, the only other one that I kind of think would enter the conversation for me, again, would be Detroit. And it's just because they made, I think, smart additions, and then I think they drafted well. But,
Who did they add besides
it's going to be good.
Price and Troy Stetcher? Who did they add? I can't remember.
Now you're putting me on the spot.
Well, I remember they got a pick for taking Mark Stahl, and they needed defense, so he could be an upgrade on the nobodies they had.
Yeah, let me see. I'm gonna look it up.
And no, I can't remember if they got any forwards at all, to be honest.
Nemesnikov they got, and Bobby Ryan, yeah.
Oh yeah, right. Reclamation project.
Gagne, there we go. Good old Gagne. Oh no, he was already there. I forgot.
He got traded for Anthony Nessu or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or Mike Green or whatever.
Mike Green, and then they got Thomas Greiss, so they got a goalie, but I don't think he'll be, again, kind of the same thing with Ottawa. I don't think he's going to be exceptional. All right, so for the losers or worst offseason, I mean, we kind of talked about these 3. I have 3 here. We have Columbus. They cleared the cap space. They didn't do anything. I do think that maybe there's still time for them to do something, especially with teams trying to get down to the cap before the season starts, as we've mentioned a bunch. San Jose, their goaltending situation, it's like, and I just think for that alone, to me, they're a loser, but they didn't do a ton this offseason. And then Minnesota, because every move they made just seems so confusing to me.
Yeah, I thought about putting Minnesota in. I actually had 5. I kept adding loser after loser.
Mm-hmm.
I had Arizona in there because they lost Taylor Hall. They lost draft picks in their scandal.
Yeah, I mean Arizona is I think the biggest loser. I didn't think of them, but yeah.
They're gonna suck. And they even had like their best player and top defense and rumors, who was looking to be out the door. I think they're the biggest loser. They're gonna suck. And who likes Arizona and their New Jerseys anyway?
I love their New Jersey.
Then Columbus, like you, like no big wins. They obviously cleared space because they wanted to do stuff and they didn't. They got Domi and friggin' Miku Koivu. Who cares?
Yeah.
Had Florida because Florida lost Hoffman, Dadnov, and Mike Mass, whatever. But like their biggest ads were Radko Gudas and Patrick Hornqvist, and I don't know, a week or two saw like the NHL on Facebook like Florida key off-season additions and like those two, and I was like, who in Florida is excited about that? Like seriously.
Yeah.
So Florida was one of the three for sure for the top three, and then I threw in Chicago because they let Crawford walk and they have crappy goalies, and the Saad for Zadorov trade's gonna hurt them.
Yep.
And the core is just old. Like Patrick Kane's still gonna be good. Taves maybe. And then finally, Boston I put as a loser too because they lost Torrey Krug for nothing, and they really only added Craig Smith and like big freaking up.
Yeah, Boston's going to be an interesting one for this year. I really don't know, especially because Marchand and Pasternak are both going to be injured at the beginning of the season.
Right.
I think they're going to take a big step back this year, but we'll see.
We will see. Clip it.
With it.
Do you want to talk World Juniors, or is there anything to talk about there really?
Basically just Team Canada named their team today, and it looks like you would expect very stacked.
Yeah.
It seems like, the tournament's going to go ahead, so there's going to be some hockey on Christmas or Boxing Day, which is going to be very exciting for everyone. And yeah, that's basically all I had to say about it. I don't think there's anything too crazy there.
No, not until we know more. I mean, there's been a few players dropping out and a few coaches dropping out, but as far as we know, all 10 teams are going to come in this weekend. And
yeah, the one that's very interesting is Sweden, because I think all their coaches or half of their coaches or something like that aren't going to be eligible to come because they tested positive after the cutoff date or whatever.
Right.
And there's a bunch of players that also tested positive, so they'll be a very interesting team to watch. But
yeah, I think they're going to still want to try to get in there just for the exposure and experience of the kids.
Yeah.
Even if it is a disaster, but they could just always fall back on it. It was a different year and we couldn't bring everybody in, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I'm going to quickly, do you want to start off with the division thing? And I'm going to throw on a new sweater and a Santa hat.
Sounds good. Okay, so yeah, just for everyone, I guess, who doesn't know, but I don't know why you'd be watching this if you didn't know. The NHL has had to realign for this year because of the fact that the Canadian border is closed. So everything is going to be
You laughing at my jersey?
different. Yeah, I'm laughing. I'm laughing because of my predictions. And so they've come out with 4 new divisions, it looks like. I've just called them Div 1, Div 2, Div 3, and Div 4. I know they're probably going to call them, Central, Pacific, West, and Canadian or whatever. I think I messed up one of those.
That's okay.
But I really hope that they call them something cooler, especially because this year everyone's jumbled. But anyway, that's kind of a side note. So the first division, I'll just read off the order I think it is in because that's how I have it listed.
Yep.
This is your boys' division here.
All right.
Division is very interesting because I think it's kind of a mix of old and declining and then young and up and coming.
Yep.
And it is going to be probably the most competitive, I would say. I think the Flyers are going to win it. The only hesitation I have there is, again, their backup goalie being Elliott and this season being what it is. But I think they have the best team out of this group. The team I have finishing second is Washington. I think Washington is a team that could decline this year. They're getting older, but I like their goalie combination there of Samsonov and Lundqvist. And I think they'll have enough to come in second here. The third team I have is the Islanders, and this is assuming that Barzal resigns in some sort of timely manner, because I think if he doesn't, they could be in some trouble.
Yeah.
And then in fourth, I do have Boston. I kind of hummed and hawed with this one because of what I said before, but I think the strength is, again, their goaltending and then their overall defensive play. I don't think that they're going to score many goals, so it could be interesting, but I have them finishing fourth. Then I have the Rangers, which is kind of one of my hot takes, I guess. I think they're going to be better, but I don't think they're going to be like exceptional. And then I have the Penguins because I think they're going to take a step back this year again, basically because of their defense more than anything. And then I have the Devils because, you know, they're not very great, but they've got a decent goalie and they've got Corey Crawford now backing him up, which means I have the Sabres in last. And that might be shocking, but I just think it's because, again, the strength of the goaltending position in Buffalo, I think, is the weakest in that division. Their defense is kind of all over the place still. Their forwards have gotten better. I think they will have gotten better, but I don't see them finishing very high in this division.
It's funny. I felt that this is the strongest division of them,
Yeah.
but I felt it was almost the easiest to rank.
Oh, yeah?
And we almost had the exactly identical list.
Okay.
So I had Philly first.
Yeah.
Washington second. Islanders third, based on Barzal resigning.
Yeah.
I actually have the Rangers next.
Okay.
And I almost flipped them with the Islanders.
Oh, yeah.
I really believe in the strength of their goaltending and the fact that they're going to be a year older and their forwards are incredible, but we'll see. So I have, Philly, Washington, Islanders, Rangers, Boston fifth, Pittsburgh sixth, then I had Buffalo second to last, and Jersey last. And the only reason I think I put Buffalo above New Jersey is because goaltending aside, they're similar in terms of how many young prospects they've kind of accumulated because they suck.
Yeah.
But Buffalo's been accumulating for like 1 year, 2 years longer. So I think they're just be 1 or 2 years ahead of New Jersey. So
Yeah, for sure.
that's
I almost flipped them. I was very back and forth with those two, but I feel like everyone's predicting New Jersey below, and then I was like, I don't know. Anyway, it'll be an interesting year, and then I think kind of before moving forward, the other part of this whole season that's still up in the air is how they're going to do playoffs. Like if it's just going to be the top 4 teams in every division make the playoffs, because some of these divisions are a lot weaker than others, and it will be very interesting to see how they stack up, kind of thing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the point totals at the end and how people get. It's almost like football, how like the top, a 3-8 team can make the playoffs, but a 7-5 in another division doesn't make it because that's the rules or whatever. But I'll move on to what we'll call the Central next. I questioned it as possibly the weakest division.
Yeah, I agree.
But it was difficult to order. I almost did it backwards, but I mean, I felt it was obvious Tampa Bay would be number 1.
Yep.
I put Carolina as number 2.
Yep.
I never have any faith in their goalies, and I still don't really. But they seem to pull it off because they have such good defense. So I put Carolina 2. I put Dallas 3. I put Nashville 4. Columbus 5. Florida 6. Chicago, then Detroit.
Okay. We're close again in most of them, but there's still some differences there.
Yep.
I have Tampa finishing first, and I don't think it's going to be close between them and whoever comes second.
Yeah.
And I also have Carolina coming second. Again, I was hesitant about their goalie situation, but they have such a good defense on that team. I feel like it will almost make up a bit of that because their forwards, the style they play, they're almost like Toronto, America. I feel like it can almost outscore their problems, but it will be interesting, and they're a team that I've been calling for them to get a new goalie all summer, but I do think that maybe if they struggle out the gate, they'll look at adding someone, but who knows.
Right.
Then in third, I have Columbus, and I mainly have them there because of their goaltenders. I think it could be a year they take a step back, but I say that every year, so, there it is. Then fourth, I have Dallas. I would have had Dallas higher, but I know Sagan is out for a while, and they always have trouble scoring. And I don't know about Ben Bishop, so, is Ottinger going to play a bunch of games for them in net? I don't know. I wanted to have a spicy take and have them missing the playoffs, and I almost did, but we'll say that they pull it off and they make it.
What about Kudobin, though?
Hudobin is good, but again, just because of the compressed schedule, right? Like, you're going to have your backup play some games, and
Yeah.
if Bishop is out long term, then I think they're in trouble, but if not, I think they're better, and they're just a team that always has trouble scoring, so if Sagan's not there, their center depth is not very good. Anyway, fifth, I have Nashville. I think Nashville will have a bounce back season. I'm still not sure how good they are, but I think they're better than what they were last year. Then fifth, I have Florida. Sixth, I have Detroit, and then
I think you've already listed 4 teams when you went to Nashville.
oops. Okay, well then I have Detroit. And then I have Chicago in last. I have Chicago in last because I think that their goaltending situation is just a mess.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, no, that's why I put Chicago second last, because they're old and their goalies are going to be, I don't have faith, but maybe they know a lot more than we know.
Yeah, maybe Subban's going to light it up.
You want to take on the so-called Pacific?
Sure. All right, so this is another one that I think is really weak. And
totally weak.
Yeah, I had a very hard time ranking this one because I think outside of the top team, they all have issues. So I have Colorado first, and I think that's just I think Colorado is probably going to win the President's Trophy because of the division that they play in more than anything.
Right.
But anyway, so they're number one. I have Vegas second, and again, I wanted to move Vegas further down, but I just don't see, like, the third place team I have is St. Louis, and unless they go out and get a solid backup goalie for Bennington, I don't see them being better than Vegas. But I think both those teams have big holes. St. Louis as being the goaltending situation, and then Vegas as being their offensive or center depth. And then if they trade Pacioretty, So anyway, those two teams I think could flip. And then my super spicy take is I have San Jose in 4. And I just look at the rest of the teams in that division, and I don't really think they can do anything. San Jose, again, just because they're rested and the defense is old, but they're good. They were good. I feel like that's better than the rest, but that goaltending situation is awful. Then 5th, I have Minnesota. I'm good. Then I actually changed, and I put Arizona in 6th. But I'm going away from my spicy takes in the summer. And that's just because of the other two teams. So I have the Kings second last, and then the Ducks last, but I think you could flip those two. They're both pretty,
Yeah, I agree with most of what you're saying. They're very similar. I had Colorado number 1, similar to Tampa Bay, and the other one. Besides the goaltending thing, I couldn't see any reason to not put St. Louis 2. I feel like Vegas sacrificed too much to get what they are now. So they're third. Minnesota I had as one of the teams that benefited the most from this realignment because I feel like they're going to be ahead of the 3 California teams in Arizona. Yep. Whereas if they were in the Central,
they wouldn't make it.
Yeah. And then I have San Jose, Anaheim, LA, Arizona, and I felt like I could have flipped all 4 of those teams around. Maybe not San Jose, but the bottom 3, they're going to be garbage.
You're all terrible, yeah.
So, yeah. So far I have, like, Dallas benefiting a bit to moving in the Central. I don't know why I said that. I think Tampa Bay benefits hugely by getting away from teams like Boston.
Yep.
Toronto. Moving into what we're going to talk about next, I feel like Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary get screwed the biggest out of anybody because they don't get to play those crappy teams in the Pacific anymore.
Yeah, and I feel like all three of those teams, right? Like if it was a regular Pacific Division, they're guaranteed almost to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Whereas now, I doubt all three do. They could, but I don't think it's gonna end up that way.
No. So
Yeah.
moving into all Canadian division, the Gretzky division, if you will.
Yeah.
Why I threw on my sweet Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. It's the only other Canadian team I have apparently besides Vancouver.
Oh yeah.
So I decided to stick with my list from our episode 9 or 10 or whatever it was on Halloween, except I did flip 2.
Okay.
I decided to flip 2 and I'll justify it, but sticking with Montreal 1,
Okay.
sticking with Winnipeg 2, Toronto 3, Calgary 4, and then I did bump Vancouver up above Edmonton.
Okay.
Primarily because Edmonton didn't upgrade in goal, and they lost Clefbaum on D for the year, and the only addition they made was Barry, and he's not going to help their defensive side of things. So I moved Vancouver up to 5th, and then Edmonton, then Ottawa.
Okay. So this is the one I think that we have the most difference in, and yeah. Okay, so I have Calgary in first, and that's only because I think they're the most complete team in Canada right now, like for this specific year. I think their defensive solid, their goaltending is solid. I'm a big believer in Markstrom right now. I think you know that. But I think it was a smart move for them to get him, although I think again they overpaid. And then their offense is decent. I think that if Gaudreau bounces back, they'll have a very good team. If he doesn't, they have Kachuk, they have Lindholm, they have other players that can kind of carry the lead now. And I just think that, unfortunately, I do not like Calgary. They have the best team right now. And then at number 2, I have Vancouver. And this is a big change from where I had them before. But I think that here, for me, it's the goalie situation with having both Holtby and Demko there. I think they have an advantage over basically all the other teams besides Montreal here. And then I think Pettersson is just going to go off. I really believe he's going to have a big season. Really, if you think about it, Toffoli, I know everyone's upset that he left, and I was upset mainly because of the deal he signed, but he didn't play a ton in Vancouver. And I think they'll be okay. And then I think Nate Schmidt is a really big add. I would take Schmidt over having Tanev and Stetcher. And it's just unfortunate they couldn't sign that one more kind of bottom pairing defenseman. But I think they'll be okay. And yeah, that's my justification of putting Vancouver there.
Okay.
Third, I have Toronto, like you. I wanted to put Toronto first originally, but then I started thinking about it. And I just don't think they've done enough to change kind of what their problems were, but maybe they will. And again, their backup goalie situation and then all the kind of noise around Anderson right now, I just don't think it's going to be great for them. But yeah. Fourth, I have Montreal. I think Montreal improved a lot, but I don't know how much I have faith in them just because they're kind of relying so much on Suzuki and Kotkaniemi kind of continuing their growth that we saw this summer. And if any of that falters, I think they'll be in trouble, but their goaltending is so good that I think they'll be okay. I just don't know how much better they will be. So I put them fourth, put Edmonton fifth, exactly what you said. I do think there's another side of me that could see Edmonton as high as second in this division because of McDavid and Draisaitl. And I think they can, again, almost outscore their problems. But I just don't think they're a very complete team. I think they're so top heavy right now. It's not going to be great. And then I have Winnipeg. I just think Winnipeg has too many issues on defense. And then Hellebuck is obviously amazing, but I don't think he can repeat the season he had last year. I think it was amazing. And then I don't know about Brossois having to play regularly again or overworking Hellebuck, either of those two things. And then I have Ottawa because, Ottawa.
Fair enough.
I almost feel like you could toss that order in any sort of blender, and I'd say, yeah, that there's some justification that can be made for that.
Yeah, no, I agree. The one caveat I will throw with your Edmonton could be second comment is, sure, McDavid and Draisaitl get a lot of points, but like for example, Draisaitl had 112 points last year or something silly.
Yeah.
He was a minus player,
Yeah, totally.
right? So how does a guy who gets that many points ends up at minus? Like, it just shows how even their forward group is just so lacking defensively, and with their crappy goalies,
Yeah.
I can't see them getting better than fifth myself. But I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in Calgary's forward group either.
Yeah.
I feel like Gaudreau and Monahan are kind of getting apathetic in a way, and I don't think they have enough supporting cast to really carry them. We'll see. I'm gonna actually hold on to these lists because I'm not very good at like tracking back through our podcast to figure out what I said. Because I'm
Yeah.
curious to see how this all goes. But I think the Canadian one is, like you said, the most blender likely. It's the one that could really get mixed up in almost any way.
Yeah.
Except I feel like Edmonton and Ottawa are going to stay at the bottom. But the top five really could go anyway. And a lot of it, like you say, depends on goaltending. Like, it is only 56 games. And so Hellebuck might play 50 of 56, and that's just like a regular season.
Yeah. It's just because they're going to be so compressed.
It's true, but he's young still.
He's young. I don't know. Again, I have some weird feeling about Winnipeg this year. I like Winnipeg as a team, but I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know either. And I mean that Trouba deal they made where they got Pionk in a first for Trouba.
Yeah.
Worked all year. Like when they made it, it was like they got a first and who?
Yeah.
But I think Pionk is probably like the most commonly known name now that wasn't known before last season, if you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, for sure. He was a good part of that deal for them. I think they did. But yeah, for me, back to New York, like the Rangers, that was the reason I had them low, was because of their defense. Anyway, sorry, that was a long time ago, but got me thinking about it with Trouba.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, we'll see how this goes, and exciting to watch some hockey in Christmas and in January and all that good stuff. And hopefully, based on the rules of life, we'll be able to watch some hockey games together in person.
Yeah, it'll be fun, eh?
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, alrighty.
So I think that's all I got for tonight.
That's all I got as well. I'm hopefully this week there's some confirmation about the start of the season, and then, World Juniors starts up, and there'll be lots of hockey stuff to talk about.
And yeah, we need it. It's all about getting positive stuff finally. We're due. And I need to go top up on wine, so it's a good time we're done.
There you go. Alrighty. Okay,
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Episode 12. Thanks for listening, and we will be back.